Jack shifted the weight of the grocery bags in his arms as he walked down the dimly lit corridor of Section 7 Delta. The space station hummed with its usual mechanical rhythm, a sound that had become as familiar to him as his own heartbeat over the past 3 years. His boots made soft metallic clicks against the grated floor as he navigated toward his quarters. He was tired. Another double shift at the oxygen recycling plant had left his shoulders aching and his mind foggy. All he wanted was to heat up some real food, not the synthesized protein blocks everyone else seemed content with, and maybe catch up on messages from Earth. The bags in his hands contained actual vegetables, imported at ridiculous costs from the hydroponics bay: tomatoes, onions, real garlic, luxuries that made him feel human in this cold metal can floating in space. That's when he saw her. A small figure stood partially hidden behind a support beam, barely 3 feet tall. At first, Jack thought it might be someone's child, but as his eyes adjusted to the shadows, he realized his mistake. The girl's skin had a faint luminescence, pale blue-gray like moonlight on water. Her eyes were too large, too dark, reflecting the corridor lights like polished obsidian. Delicate, translucent membranes fluttered where human ears would be. She was staring directly at his grocery bags. Jack froze. The Kelvari weren't supposed to be on this level. After the integration protocols had been established 2 years ago, the alien refugees had been assigned to sections 9 through 12, where the atmosphere and gravity could be adjusted to their needs. Humans and Kelvari coexisted on the station, but interactions were careful, diplomatic, formal. This little girl looked neither diplomatic nor formal. She looked hungry. Her large eyes tracked the movement of the bags, and Jack noticed how thin she was. Too thin. The simple gray garment she wore hung loose on her frame, and her slender fingers clutched the edge of the support beam with an intensity that made his chest tighten. "Hey," Jack said softly, not wanting to startle her. "You're okay." The girl flinched but didn't run. Instead, she tilted her head in that peculiar way the Kelvari did when they were uncertain, the membranes near her temples fluttering rapidly. She didn't speak. Maybe she didn't understand English, or maybe she was too frightened. Jack glanced down at his bags, then back at her. He thought about Anna, his sister back on Earth. She'd sent him a message last week with a video of her new daughter, barely 2 years old, reaching for cookies on the kitchen counter with that same intense focus, the same desperate want. "Are you hungry?" Jack asked, crouching down slowly to make himself less imposing. The girl's eyes widened, and she took a small step forward before catching herself. Her gaze never left the bags. Jack made a decision that would probably violate a dozen station protocols. He set the bags down gently and reached inside, pulling out one of the tomatoes. It was perfectly ripe, red as a sunset he hadn't seen in years. He held it out toward her. "Here, it's okay. It's food." The Kelvari girl stared at the tomato as if it were a small sun. Her breathing quickened. He could see the delicate rise and fall of her chest. Slowly, hesitantly, she moved forward. Her movements were graceful despite her obvious weakness, almost floating across the floor. When she reached Jack, she stopped just out of arm's reach. Still wary, Jack placed the tomato on the ground and slid it toward her before backing up a step. "Go ahead. It's safe." The girl darted forward with surprising speed, snatching up the tomato with both hands. She examined it closely, turning it over, her small nose barely more than 2 cm. Then she bit into it. The effect was immediate and profound. Her eyes somehow grew even wider, and a sound emerged from her throat, something between a hum and a chirp that Jack had learned meant pleasure or contentment in Juice ran down her chin as she devoured the tomato with single-minded intensity, and for a moment, she forgot to be afraid. Jack felt something crack open in his chest. He reached back into his bag and pulled out an onion, then some carrots he'd splurged on. "Here, take these too." The girl looked up at him, tomato juice still on her face, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or trust. She carefully took the vegetables from his hands this time, her cool fingers briefly brushing his palm. Up close, he could see faint patterns in her skin, like constellations. "Where's your family?" Jack asked, though he suspected she couldn't understand him. She clutched the vegetables to her chest and made a low, mournful sound that needed no translation. Alone, she was alone. Jack's mind raced. He should report this to station security. There were procedures, proper channels. The girl was clearly separated from her family, possibly lost, definitely malnourished. But he also knew what would happen: bureaucracy, delays, forms in triplicate while this child went hungry in some holding area. "All right," he said, making another decision that would probably get him in trouble. "Come with me. Let's get you some real food." The girl tilted her head again, but when Jack stood and gestured for her to follow, she did. She walked slightly behind him, arms full of vegetables, making soft humming sounds as she nibbled on a carrot. As they walked toward his quarters, Jack pulled out his device and messaged Anna. "You remember how you always said I needed to think more about others? Well, I just adopted an alien." 3 dots appeared. Then, "What? Long story. But I think I finally understand what you meant about humanity. It's not about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about seeing someone hungry and sharing what you have." "That's very philosophical for someone who forgot my birthday last year." Jack smiled. I'm growing as a person. The little Kelvari girl looked up at him, her dark eyes reflecting the corridor lights, trust beginning to replace fear. She held up the half-eaten carrot like a trophy. Yeah, Jack said quietly. We'll figure this out, kid. That's what humans do. Behind them, Section 7 Delta hummed on, a small sanctuary in the vast darkness of space where two species, different as starlight and stone, could share something as simple and profound as a meal. And in that moment, Jack understood that humanity's greatest export to the stars wouldn't be technology or weapons or even art. It would be this, the simple, stubborn insistence on kindness, even when the universe gave them every reason to be otherwise.